good morning, and good morning. Yes, I still have this bit of laryngitis from a cold that I had 2 weeks ago, but it keeps holding on. I've rested pretty much all week because the wonderful snowstorm that we got, that I never returned to New York over, came down here to Florida. So I've just been looking out at it and, thinking, wow, I know why I didn't go back to New York to live, even though I will go back, but I never go back in the wintertime. So good morning, good morning. But I said it was in this, hoping that this is just they've been having some outages in and out since there's been so much, I guess, water in the snow, and so it's made it a real heavy snow. So in between me trying to do this, I'm hoping that I'll be on and won't be interrupted. But anyway, good morning, good morning. I want to talk about a word that kind of interests me over my days of laying around and drinking hot tea and trying to get my druthers back of feeling good. And the funny thing about this weird, respiratory thing I have, I feel fine. I don't have any aches, no pains. I don't have a runny nose, none of the other crazy symptoms. It's just weird. And it's settled right where, I guess, because it's something that I use all the time, which is my voice. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about um, magnanimity. And I've heard that word over and over again. What is magnanimity? How is it applied? How is it received? How is it accepted or rejected? But first I'm going to start off. A few weeks ago, probably about maybe the first week of January, I did the word mellifluous. Mellifluous. And mellifluous is when someone's voice is sweet and lyrical and quiet and almost, euphoric when you hear them. Obviously, I don't sound like that because I'm gravelly today, but it's just a contrast, but it's also the opposite of what you would get when you're looking at this word for today. So we'll do a brief retake. So mellifluous talks about, a voice that sweet and musical, pleasant to hear. And it says it could be that they are euphoric, they have a lifting in their voice, and they lift others up when they speak. And said there could be a liquidiness to it. It just sounds like maybe a harp playing. Um, and it says there's light in the voice itself, and there's fluency, meaning you understand it, you feel it, it's understood more than just the word. It's the feeling that the word gives us. So anyway, that's that word. So today's word is magnanimity. Magnanimity, excuse me. And what does it mean? It says it's the quality of being magnanimous, magnanimous, loftiness of spirit, enabling one to bear trouble calmly. Um, have you seen some people that might, get all on to you about any little thing? I have in the past. I try to steer clear of those folks. It says they may have this volume that is disdaining, meanness about them, pettiness. They can stay in. They can stay in their pettiness. And it says they display no kind of noble generosity. They are noble. You are not, and therefore you are considered to be less than. Um, it's so funny because words sometimes, um, when we point out what the words are, they give meaning. But what we don't realize is that the actions that the words give are even more poignant. So sometimes we don't know what word to give it. But if we see the action, we can tie the two together and it makes sense. So when we look at someone with this magnanimity, we really talking about people that have no generosity or grace or kindness, or they're maybe altruistic. They have no mercy, no compassion, no nobleness, humanitarianism. They may be pity or not lacking maybe understanding and understanding, empathy and understanding. So we look at that as being things that we may not understand as being good. But it says when someone looks at magnanimity, they're looking at how can we enable the spirit to come through so that you understand who I am, what I'm all about. And it says when we have somebody that may be have magnanimity, that we're looking for, where's the kindness? They may not have it. They may not have that kindness. So where is it? How do we get to it? Where do we get? I apologize for my coughing this morning. But anyway, we're just going to try to get through the word. So when we look at magnanimity, we want to look at mercifulness. I think when I first started out, I was talking about there being opposite, but actually they're really the same words. They're kind of connected. When someone is looking at mellifluous, that means their voices are kind. They're looking at how appreciative they are of just being in the presence, or you being in their presence because you like that. So when we have somebody that has mercifulness, we're looking at, are they kind? Are they gentle? Are they compassionate? Do they offer, a sense of welcoming to who they are? Are they welcoming to you? And it says they may have mercy on others. Do you have mercy? Are you kind to anybody? I am always looking at how can I be kind to people, because I feel it's something that is reciprocal. If I'm kind, I'm hoping and praying that they would also be kind. And it says also looks at being compassionate, having clemency. I never have been in anything where I needed clemency, thank God. Especially when you think of crimes that have been done and people trying to get their lives back together. That would be a time when they've become felons and they need clemency. That would be mercifulness, where someone decided to look at them as being merciful. And it says also giving grace and clarity. Sometimes we're not graceful. We don't make sense. And I think that's the human spirit more so than anything else playing out. People sometimes just aren't kind. And it says we also may offer, when we're merciful, when we're giving mercifulness, we're tender. We're looking at how can I give grace? If you want grace, you have to give grace. My mother always said, what you give, you expect to receive in return. And it talks about mercifulness as goodness, generosity, nobility, and sometimes we have to give pity. Do we have pity for people that are less fortunate than us? When we go down the street and we see somebody who may be on hard times, do we occasionally give them something? Not saying that you can do it every day, but do you do it sometimes? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I really will, give something to somebody that I feel could use a cup of coffee, or, I don't want to try to get them into cigarettes or drinking, but, I can't determine the goodness or worry about the goodness after I did it. If I did something and whatever they do with what I've given to them, that's on them. It's not me, So it talks about understanding, being merciful when we have this thing called magnanimity. And then we move on in our word of magnanimity, which is MAGNANIMITY. My A of magnanimity is altruistic. When we're altruistic, we're showing a, disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others, meaning we're not going to worry about what they do with how well we've been to them. We just let them do it. They may or may not come back and be able to show us that they appreciate what was done, but we do our best. And it says it's selfless concern for the well-being of others. Selfless, meaning I'm not in this. I'm unselfish about how I feel. I want you to be all right, or as right as you can be. So it talks about self-denying, self-sacrificing, kind-heartedness. Good morning, Maurice. How are you? Good to see you in this space. Considerate. It says that a person that's altruistic is decent and noble and generous. It says they may be charitable, ungrudging, unbiased. They're not there to decide who you are or what you are. They're there to just maybe try to help you out a little bit. Good morning, Cheryl. How are you? You and Carney, how y'all doing this morning? Today our word is magnanimity. And we also talk about benevolent when we have magnanimity. Liberal, we're humanitarians, meaning we're not concerned about what others may think. We just want to do what we want to do. We're humanitarians. We're interested in the entire process of how well a person does. But it doesn't mean that we know all of their business. We're just helping where we can, where we fit in. And it says we may even be philanthropic, meaning we have some money to give. All right. I don't know what that thing is going on, but hopefully we'll be all right. Good morning, Joan. Today our word is magnanimity. And so magnanimity talks about us being mercifulness, altruistic. My G in magnanimity is generous. Sometimes our generosity is words. It may not have to be anything that we physically have given away as money or even our time. It may be just we've given a kind word, but it says showing a readiness to give more of something, whatever that something may be. It could be money or time. Then it is strictly necessary, meaning you didn't have to do it, but you did it because you wanted to, and that makes it wonderful. It says, and it's something that's also expected, not expected by the other person, but expected of yourself. It says we may be liberal and lavish. It says we may be giving, unselfish, greatness. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Good morning. Wonderful to see you. Hey, Justice, how are you, my friend? Good to see you in this space. And once again, I apologize for my frogginess, but I've had a cold. This is the remnants of it. I don't feel bad. No fever, not contagious. Done all the things doctor told me to do, but still just kind of holding on to that portion of what was at one time a worse cold. But it also says when we're looking at having this thing called magnanimity, we want to look at the fact that we give a thing called niceness. We're just nice. We enjoy it. Sometimes to me, when I'm nice, I love it to the point where it makes me feel good. Not that I'm expecting anything in return. Nothing. Everybody knows me to be someone who will give little things to people to say, hoping your day is special, wishing you a happy birthday, happy anniversary, something. Not buying you in any way, because I can't be bought in that way. But I love people enough to let them know while I'm still hearing, seeing, doing, and able. Because one day all of this will go away and I won't be able to do it. Nobility is a wonderful word. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, Miss Rosie. How are you? Welcome. So when we look at somebody who's working in that realm of their magnanimity, they're looking at being kind. They're looking at being nice. And then it talks about, being sweet. How sweet of us are we? And that would be affability. Affability. We have a tendency to want to do something for somebody, and it says that's the state or quality of being pleasant. We just want to do it. Nothing in return is expected. We have an agreeable manner. It may be through socializing. It may just be a note to somebody. I remember when I was in in school that I always had a teacher who knew that I loved reading and writing, and she would always just write on a little note, and she would say, Sandra, I want you to read this section tonight. And it would be a book that she gave me, and it would be marked. And she said, will you get up tomorrow and explain it? And I love that, just because she thought enough of me to make it where I was being pulled up from my quietness, and I've not stopped talking since. Even with me sounding hoarse, necessity is a great word. Sometimes we realize that there is a necessity for us to do what we do. Like, I didn't want to go the whole week without saying something to those of you who drop in to, are you stuck? Because sometimes we're just that stuck. So when we have this thing, we want to be sweet, which is, it says that when we're sweet, we may have an agreeable manner in socializing with others. We may have, it says amiability, pleasantness, niceness, graciousness, and kindness. All those nisses. They're good nisses. They are really good. So we look at our lives as, circling every day where we want to be, not necessarily recognized for what we do, but I certainly love it when people thank me for just saying, hey, you remembered me today. Thank you so much. That's it. I don't need anything else than that. I appreciate it. So when you all come in here, I'm going to thank you. I'm going to thank you, thank you, thank you. We move on our word of magnanimity. We talk about nobleness. Are we noble? Are we noble? And nobleness is possessing and characterized by or rising from superiority of mind, of character, or of idols or morals, meaning ideals or morals, meaning that we tamp it down. We make sure that we're noble in terms of our kindness, in terms of our desire to just be on a level where we're moral, we're ethical, we have virtuousness, we have rightness, and we understand the significance of just being who we are, and that's pleasant beings. I just think of the climate that we've had, where the country has become divided over this and that, up and down, me and he, she and they. It's too much. For me, it's too much personally. I just, want to get along, Nobody knows how much time we have here. So it doesn't need to be time where it's always turmoil, always proving. My mother used to call it proving and defending who you are. Just be who you are. No proof necessary. The proof is in the actions. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. So when we look at nobleness, we're looking at morale, ethical, virtuousness, rightness, and nobleness. When we move on in our word of magnanimity, we look at who are we inspiring? Inspiring, that's the word. Having the effect of inspiring someone. If I do kindness to someone, even if it doesn't come back to me, maybe the kindness will be passed on to someone else. I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, and she said she had gone to the store to get some coffee and like a 7-Eleven. And on the way out, she said there was like maybe $3 or $4 left, but she had spilled some coffee on the counter, and the young lady that she didn't know helped her clean it up. And she said she felt so wonderful about that, that there are people that would just help you. And so she bought the person's coffee. And she said, whatever that money will pay for her coffee and someone else's, that's fine, passing it on. How many of us do that? How many of us are willing to be an inspiration to someone else? I am inspired to do something, and someone is inspired by what I did to do something for someone else. That's great. So inspiring talks about encouraging, exciting, uplifting, heartening, moving, rousing, stimulating, and just making people feel good about who they are. So inspiring, when we talk about the word of magnanimity, inspiring is also in that word. It's in that process. Now, this word I did this word about maybe 3 weeks ago towards the beginning of January. And it talks about munificent. Munificent is very liberal when giving. How many of us have done that? We're very liberal. We don't worry about how much it costs. We don't worry about what they're going to do with it. We just do it. I don't know if you're a person that, when something comes across in a GoFundMe, do you get smitten or bitten and you want to give? Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a good thing, but you need to check it all the way out, because sometimes it's a scam. So if it's a scam, certainly we don't want to be about it. But there was one online the other day for a family, and I did help the family because I do know them, but I contacted them first. And then I let them know that I was going to put something there for them, because that was the way their fund had been set up. So sometimes we have to run down the story. What is it? What's in the details? And if the details make sense, do we want to be a part of that? So when we are liberal givers, we may do the munificent way of handling a gift or a sum of money. It says we may be generous beyond, reason sometimes, but for the most part, we're probably not. It says, but usually we understand it is a munificent gesture, meaning it may be one time that we do it. We're willing to do it. We don't mind it. It's a generosity. It could be something that was considered bountiful. Open-handed, meaning we gave it with an open hand. We didn't close the hand before they got it. We gave it to them. It says that we may be philanthropic. There it is again. Sometimes we are philanthropic. We want to do something for others. It may be princely, which I had never heard that word before, but it's almost like a person that is in a royal position and is doing, so it's princely. Lavish, meaning we may give more than we should. Occasionally that may happen. It says that we may be, a beneficiary of somebody, or we may be out and out sympathetic. We want to do it. We don't mind it. It's necessary. I don't know. I've always been a person that I try to weigh what I hear. Not to say that I've not been scammed, because I think if you've lived long enough, somebody may be scamming you out of 10 cents more than what somebody else paid. That's why in New York, when I go home, I would never get too caught up on street vendors, because I felt street vendors they would go with the crowd. They would go with ebb and flow. If it was a good time and they felt they'd judge a character, you gave more than what it was worth, or you should have paid. Sometimes that happens. It happens to us. But anyway, when we move on our word of magnanimity, we talk about, are we tolerant? And tolerant is someone who's willing to accept and understand people. And sometimes that means their beliefs and their behaviors. They may be different from our own, but we're okay with it. Not saying that we can change people, because we cannot. For those who are dissatisfied with what they see and hear, sometimes you can turn off the TV, turn off the radio, go in another room to get away from what it is that you don't want to hear. And then sometimes you have to be tolerant enough where you listen to it and you don't even make comment. It's just a part of where you're at. Sometimes we can't do anything about changing the landscape, changing what we hear. But sometimes we can, and when we can, turn it off, move away. Don't go there. Stay out of reach. So when we're tolerant, we may be open-minded, easygoing, patient, composed. How many of us are composed about most things? I try to be. Every once in a while, I'm not. Lenient. When I was coming along with my raising my daughter, sometimes I was probably too lenient. I'm probably more stern now. And probably if I had a grandbaby, I probably would be overly lenient. They say that's what happens. It says that tolerant also talks about us being passive. Are we passive personalities? And amicable? Is there a willingness for us to be amicable and allow things to just be? And it is what it is. I can't change it. I acknowledge that I see it. I acknowledge that I may not agree with it, but I'm tolerant of it. And sometimes we don't have any tolerance whatsoever. And for those situations, we should stay away from them. And then lastly, in our word of magnanimity, we talk about being yielding. When we yield to stuff, that means we're characterized by a ready capability to adapt to new and different. Let's face it, this world that we're living is now, for some of us, it's very new, and it might be very different from what we've experienced in the past. But we have to be adjustable, adaptable, reasonable, understandable. Everything won't be crystal clear. Everything won't be the way we want it. But we have to be willing to accept what it is that we see. So, excuse me. So when we talk about yielding, that means we've surrendered to whatever it is that we can accept. What we can't accept, we can either step away from, step aside from, or step around it. We step around it. It says we can capitulate, we can submit, we can relent, we can admit that it's above us, beyond our pay grade, beyond our listening skills, beyond our capability to change. And it says yielding is also acknowledging defeat on that subject, on that area. And that's it. Doesn't say that we've been defeated. It's just saying that we acknowledge that the flag is waving white for that. We're done with that. We can't change it. I think so many times we've been in our lives, we've experienced things that we just shake our head to. We can't believe that they happened or that we've seen it happen. But the acknowledgement is that we yield to it. It happened, can't change it, but we can't even make sometimes sense of it. But we concede and we back down. Backing down doesn't mean you've given up. It just means that you understand that it's bigger than you, it's wider than you, it's over you, it's under you, and it can surround you if you let it. But you have to realize that you are in control, and to have this characteristic of magnanimity. And when I started out, I thought I was dealing with another word. So it shows that magnanimity means it's a positive word, not a negative word. So the generosity, the grace, the kindness, the altruistic, the mercy, the compassion, the nobleness, the humanitarianism, the pity, the empathy, and the understanding are important. They're important aspects of making life more reasonable for us when we can find things that give us that that air, that position, that comfort of life in life. And it's hard to do. Sometimes it's very hard to do, especially if you have people that are the reverse of that, which is what the way I started this thing out, where it's the reverse of who we expect to show up. I don't want anybody to come and curse at me or be angry at me or subject me to things that I'm not wanting to be a part of. But I also have to understand that mercifulness says that I hear them, but I don't adapt to them. I acknowledge them, but I cannot stay in the presence of them. I want to keep this thing called magnanimity, where I'm comfortable with you after I leave you. I'm done with it. You could still have the same personality of being disgruntled and lacking some things. Good morning, Erica. How are you? Good to see you in the space. I'm almost over this thing I got going on, but I just want y'all to know that I love you very much. Erica, you have to watch the rest of it, but I think it really pretty much says that life will exist even after we leave here, but we need to make it as pleasant as it can be while we are here. And so for that, it's important that we remember who we are in the midst of what we are experiencing and who we are experiencing it around. And if there's a person that doesn't have this thing called magnanimity, and they're the opposite of being mean and angry and frustrating and hurtful and, spiteful and degrading, we acknowledge that. But move on. Don't stay there in it. But look, I love you guys. I'm going to rest my voice. I've done my 32 minutes, and usually I take longer than that. But I realize I need to be able to get back to talking and singing soon. And so I'm going to rest now. I want y'all to have a wonderful weekend. If you're in the snow or near the snow and it still got some, I've seen some wonderful snowmen online. Some were so funny. In fact, I saw one yesterday that was dressed up in Mardi Gras attire. Another one was dressed up as a cowgirl. So you all are being really, really creative, and in this weird time of weather that we're having. But I'm going to see you on Monday, hopefully feeling better and without the frogginess to my voice. All right. Love you, love you, love you. Hey, listen, hit the share button. That's all you have to do. Hit share, let it be shared, and we'll go from there. Okay. I see you on Monday. Love you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.